there has been genetically altering produce in a test to see if vaccines can be delivered. And I believe that that is a goal of taking away choice and freedom that people have, and that's concerning to me.
Your organization has achieved a significant dent in vaccine mandates.
We didn't do the science. We didn't do the clinical trials. We didn't do the post safety. But one thing we know it's rare.
Rebecca Hardy, president of Texans for Vaccine Choice here. We are at the Republican Party of Texas State Convention 2026 here in Houston, and I have the honor to be chatting with the Republican nominee for Agricultural Commissioner, that's a mouthful, Mr. Nate Sheets. We're so excited about your candidacy.
Thank you, Rebecca. Man, it's great to be here with you guys today.
Wonderful. Well, we were very supportive of you during your primary. We're excited about the fresh perspective in this office that you provide. So tell us a little bit, just briefly, about your background and why vaccine choice matters to you.
Yeah. So I've got a varied background, but the really important part about being Texas Ag Commissioner is I spent 30 years creating a honey company from one beehive in my backyard to the largest honey company in America called Nature Nate's. Sell it in 30,000 grocery stores, have 120,000 beehives. But when I started the honey company, I just came to realize that things got into the food that you never intended to get into the food because it's agriculture. And at the same time, bees get sick just like people. And so we'd have to treat bees in the honey business. And if you didn't do it properly, you could get antibiotics and other medications actually in the honey. And so, again, also with pesticides and herbicides and fungicides. And so for a long time, I tested all those honeys and continued to, but I realized how important that was to consumers to know what's in their food. And I think today where consumers are is they want transparency, and I think that everyone always feels like there's a great big conspiracy theory behind us. And so I just want to make sure that I can use my skills, my background, and my ability not to just build confidence from a consumer, but to work with producers to make sure that we can create the healthiest, safest, most nutritious food in America right here in Texas.
Incredible. One of the kind of emerging issues that we are kind of on the forefront here at Texans for Vaccine Choice, and I do think that this ties in nicely with your proposed office. We're hoping and praying and we'll be supporting you in your general election, is just vaccines in our food supply. And especially, the bigger concern even is the mRNA vaccines that are coming down for our animals. So can you speak to that a little bit?
So luckily, there's only one animal that mRNA is actually used in, and that's pork. And so the thing about mRNA, it's relatively new, and it goes in and it's rewriting genetic code. And they say it only stops at that one gene that they're trying to edit, but you really don't know how far that editing goes, and so they've utilized it in pork. I know that they've tested it in both poultry as well as in beef. And again, knowing what consumers want, and if I'm responsible for helping agriculture be successful in Texas, we got to get things like that out of our food. And I think the bigger picture of agriculture, especially when you have big pharma in with big ag, that there has been test projects of genetically altering produce in a test to see if vaccines can be delivered. And I believe that that is a goal of taking away choice and freedom that people have, and that's concerning to me.
Very well stated. And I just want to remind our listeners that we just have our future ag commissioner on the record of saying he's going to push back about that he's going to push back against this big pharma, big ag kind of marrying and in our food supply here in Texas. So that is excellent. Thank you. We at Texans for Vaccine Choice have seen some good movement legislatively on this. Our job is not done, but we have passed some good bills lately. With that said, why is it important for our grassroots army to stay engaged in this fight?
Listen, it's, this pressure. One, I'd say people vote with their dollars. At the end of the day, in agriculture, we're all about producing food. And it's actually said a lot. Well, our responsibility is to feed the world. I would layer one more on top of that. It's also our responsibility for the health of the world. When you see that 70% of all Americans have one chronic disease or more, 78% of kids 18 to 25 can't serve in the military because of the health related to their food. that the way we pursued feeding ourselves in America, pursuing ultra processed foods, has had a devastating effect on the health of Americans. And we spend $4 trillion a year on Medicare and $200 billion in Texas on Medicaid. So we have to do things differently. And so, at the end of the day, as if a consumer is buying a product, retail stores are going to sell what consumers want. So first and foremost, you vote with your dollars. And then secondly, politicians respond to pressure. And so to make your voice heard, to make sure that people in all of Texas understand. So when we go things like what's going on here at the Republican primary or the Republican convention, where we're voting on platforms and priorities and things to get worked into a platform that then goes to the legislatures to tell them what's important for us as Texans. Those things only happen if people get involved in politics. And so, I was told today that 70% of Christians in Texas did not vote this past cycle. That's insane. God instituted three things: the family, the church, and the government. And in the church, we spend so much time railing and fighting against decisions that are made in the civil, decision of public office. And if you are not there, if we're not there as the church, being able to help influence those decisions, then all we can do is fight them in the church. And so it is the church's responsibility to go in and make sure that we are putting people in office that love Jesus, that are going to, legislate properly and represent all of us and what we want to see accomplished in Texas.
Incredibly well said. Let's shift gears just a little bit and ask you this, and that is, what have you learned from any of your, I would say, on the campaign trail? Okay. What have you learned from the campaign trail about Texans that have been impacted by some sort of vaccine discrimination or vaccine injury?
Yeah, Shelley Luther obviously comes right to mind, and just dealing with her being fired in COVID and just that. But I've also met people that were school teachers or nurses, that we even have a very close family friend, and she was pursuing being a nurse at college, and then COVID hit, and the requirements that came from that, she just said, I'm not going to do that anymore. And so it's, I think that whether it's directly from, the results of someone being vaccinated and having their kids have, very bad reactions to that, or just society as a whole starting to demonize people that want to have the freedom to choose and to be able to even create rules that you can't go into a hospital and receive treatment because you're not vaccinated, I think is just insane. That's for California. That's for New York. That's for all these other states. That's not for Texas.
I love it. I really appreciate your voice and your clarity on this matter, and we cannot wait to continue this relationship after you win your general election, Mr. Sheets.
I need your vote. Get out there and vote. Nate Sheets for Ag Commissioner.
Incredible. Thank you so much for dropping by.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Shot Callers podcast. Please, if you found value in this content, rate us and share the podcast with a friend. It's a great way to get the message out and to empower everyone to make informed decisions. Until next time, never forget, we are the Shot Callers.